someone described acting as just an absolute forest, and you're just wandering through it, and once in a while you come into a clearing and you think you understand it, and then you realize you go into the other side of the clearing, you're back in the forest.
I think it's important to realize that much of acting is reacting, that you're encountering other people and you're seeking to change them with your words, and you're seeking to in some way respond to what they're doing. And I think that calls for a high degree of trust of the other actors. I think it calls for a good conversation about where we're going.
If actors really do their work and speak the lines, bring life to the lines, it can be the most startling experience someone may ever have.
I was playing the ghost, and I remember we had a smart performance, and the first time the ghost appears, we tried to do this really dramatic thing, and there were a couple of high school girls actually screamed. And in my mind, I was thinking, that is so cool. They're like watching it for the very first time, and I think with Shakespeare especially, we forget that element of this is just flat out a good story.
Trying to make them understandable, not just the text understandable for the audience, but I think more than that, making the character somebody that they can say, hey, I know somebody like that, or hey, I've been like that, or wow, I don't want to be like that. I think that's really important. I think that's how you do it. You make them accessible. You make the characters accessible for the audience. Yeah.
And so the audience can walk away going, hey, I don't want to be like that, or that was a good thing, and be entertained at the same time.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah. Expand.
I think the first step in any process is for the director to come up with a good cutting of the play or a good development of the script.
This version is really a combination of what was originally two plays, Henry IV Part 1 and Part 2.
Once that's happened, I think it's good for the director and certainly the major characters to make sure we're on the same wavelength in terms of where the play's going, overall interpretation, how we see the play developing.
And so we'll discuss. I'll make some suggestions. I'll ask what they think about what's going on in the scene. And I have several very experienced actors who have a lot to contribute. They understand what's going on in the scene through their own study.
I think also part of the process, though, is that not all of those choices can, nor in my opinion, should be hammered out beforehand. Part of the process is the discovery and the growth as you examine the text.
He doesn't nail anything down too early.
Yeah.
Because that's very frustrating. If you feel like the director is saying, okay, do it that way every time for the next 2 months.
Right.
Because then you have nowhere to go. But
Right.
he is very good about saying, that's a good start. I think he's very process-oriented rather than, we gotta have the product now.
My first steps are to read the script in its entirety. Then often I will go back and read the uncut script so that I can see what pieces were left out, because there's often clues about the character in pieces that were cut.
It should go without saying, but often goes without being done, and that's, what do these words mean?
And then how they're said. And then who you're talking to.
Yes.
Then I literally take the script and put it in front of me, and I have about 6, 7, 8 sources that have a lot of commentary in them, a lot of analysis, and I literally spread those out in front of me and go line by line so that every word in the script, I know what it means. Sometimes you get multiple interpretations. There's a line in the play where it says, "'Tis seldom that the bee doth leave her comb in the dead carrion." Well, that line can mean something very different depending on your definition of leave. Does that mean depart? In other words, the bee's already in the dead carrion and doesn't leave it, or does it mean deposit? It is seldom that the bee doth deposit her comb in the dead carrion. And so I had to really talk through that and decide how I was going to interpret the line. And because I feel it's important that you should never say anything on stage that you don't know exactly what it means, nor should you hear anything on stage. So another character's talking to me, I want to know what his lines mean as well, because that's going to dictate how I react as an actor.
I moved from just understanding it to, since it's poetry and prose, I try to find the rhythm of the poetry, find the rhythm of the prose, and let that help me understand it.
When you really look at the iambic pentameter in Shakespeare, he has done a lot of the work for you already by putting the most important word. In acting, we call that the operative word. It will be most likely on an accented syllable.
For more is to be said and to be done than out of anger can be uttered.
So as I look through, I basically can look into the mind of Shakespeare and go, this is what he wanted to emphasize here. This is what he chose to wanted me to vocally underline. I like to use that term. And so from that standpoint, it makes it a little easier for me to drill into my head because he's already done some of the work.
The rhythm also, I think, helps you understand, gives you some clues as to where he is emotionally, what he's thinking, what he's feeling at this time.
Early in the rehearsal process, we try to begin rehearsals with sitting and reading the scene that we're working on. Not the entire play, but just a particular scene. And then we'll talk about it. We'll discuss the relationship between the characters, what we think is actually going on in the scene, what the story of the scene is, and what people are trying to do to each other in the scene.
Well, I know for me, there was that one line where I was directing it at Falstaff, and then once Hal got in the scene, we realized I was probably directing it at Hal, because Hal comes in the scene unwittingly to Falstaff. Falstaff doesn't know he's there, but I know he's there. But that's not something that is necessarily in the text. That's something that we kind of found in the text as we were working through it.
I focus a lot on given circumstances, who, what, when, where, why, what's the story we're telling here, more than on some of the other elements of it. I think that's the kind of thing that you hammer out ahead of time, like what's this scene, what time of day is it, where have they been, where are they going, why are they doing this, so that you don't approach the scene in a vacuum.
By the time you get to performance, my job is done. It's over. I don't try to make last-minute changes. I don't worry about things that can no longer be changed. As far as I'm concerned, my job is finished. When we finish the last rehearsal and I've handed the last note to the actor, I just show up and sit in the audience with the other audience members and try to enjoy it.
And fourth, dear countrymen, let us deliver our puissance into the hand of God, putting it straight into expedition, cheerly to see the signs of war advance. No king of England, if not king of France.